Hello, fellow romance book lovers. It's me, Kat. I am so excited to finally be able to talk to you about the book that we are going to talk about today. I read it about a month ago, and honestly, yeah, let's just get right into it because I have so much to say about it. I actually had 43 highlighted passages. Is that right? 43? Oh my gosh. So the book that we are going to talk about today is called Burn by Alexandra Silva, and I am so lucky to have read her 3 previous books. I adore her writing. She is one of my favorites. I kind of got her first book, kind of by chance. She was looking for people to read an advanced reader copy, and I threw a common author friend, and I signed up to read it. And then I read it, and oh my gosh, her writing just hits me right in the gut, right in the heart. She's so talented. She's absolutely amazing. I could just gush and gush and gush about her writing because everything she writes is my favorite. And even if I didn't like the character, which has happened, it's not that I didn't like him, I didn't understand him. I still loved the book. Like, that's not enough to dissuade me from loving her writing. So to go back a little bit before we talk about Burn, I do want to talk briefly about her 3 other books, which I read, I think a year ago now. It was her first book, which is called No One But You. And holy moly, that was actually the first book, maybe one of the first few books that I actually highlighted passages in. You come across as you read, if you're, a reader like I am, and you find your favorite authors, or there's just the way somebody writes and describes things, or how they write, and just in general. I knew that there was an option to highlight on the Kindle, but I never did it before. I just would read the book, and I would, sometimes remember, oh, I remember that line or whatever, that sentence. So I did about almost 2 years ago get the opportunity to be on some teams for some different authors to get advanced reader copies and to read and review the book and then post a review. So that's really, I'm kind of new to it. It's been about 2 years, but it's grown, and I have made a lot of really good relationships and have really good relationships with authors that I'm so thankful for. And so I do get a few advanced reader copies of books, a bunch. And Alexandra is one of the ones that I was like, I have to highlight this. Like, how do I work that out on my Kindle? And so I think she thought I was crazy, honestly, because when I was done with the book, No One But You, I messaged her and I was like, oh my God, I loved it. This is amazing. It was her first book. Couldn't believe it was her first book. And I said, do you want my highlights? Do you want me to send them to you? I didn't even know how to send them to her. And she was like, yeah, that'd be great. And so I literally took screenshots of my Kindle and the pages and the sentences and the situations that I highlighted that I liked. I thought it would be good feedback, right? Well, so then of course she gets a message. So it was on the Facebook Messenger. So she got a message every single time I sent her a screenshot, which I don't even know. Alex, you have to count because I don't even know how many that was. And it was just really funny. It's kind of our running joke. But that's how much I love her writing. And ever since then, I've really realized that for me, especially doing this channel, highlighting certain passages that have been meaningful to me, or, things that really affected me in the book, or something that I thought, was really poignant in the book, highlighting those passages, it really helps me. And when I go back and I read them, I get taken right back to those favorite parts of the book. So it's really been amazing. So I read No One But You, and then I read For You, which is a novella technically, and then Someone Like You. This girl, her writing just, I mean, it gets better and better every time, but honestly, like, I think she can do no wrong. She's so good at all of her descriptions, and you know, she's written about some really tough subjects, and she handles it with such grace and such beauty, and you just really feel for the characters, and you understand where they're coming from, and you really get the full scope of a really great story. In addition to the basis of them is all love stories, and they're all, you know, different in how we all come to love, and who we meet, and who leaves and who stays, and really amazing. So I would highly recommend go and read those books as well, because that was the beginning. That was the beginning of her, and here we go. She's started a new kind of branching off into like a different, because those 3 books are about the same friends and family. So this is now another set of people that my mouth dropped because it's so different. She writes with a lot of heart and honesty, and tough subject matter. So there's intensity and there's emotion in her books. I love that. That's my favorite part. But these books, holy Toledo, she took it and ramped all of that up a notch, more like 10 notches. I couldn't put the book down. It was absolutely amazing. It's a big book. It's a long book. It's chock full of everything, every emotion you could possibly imagine. Super intense. That's the word when I talk about this book. Intense, intense, intense. Leo is intense. Cassie is intense. Their love is intense. Their situation around them is intense. Everything's intense. So if you like that kind of book where it like grabs you from the get-go and it's like you fully immerse yourself in that world, you are going to love this book. So let's talk about Burn. That was a really long, wow. Anyway, like I said, I have a lot to say. So Burn is about Cassandra, and Leo. And they are 2 young people. Leo and Cassie are from England. It takes place in England. And it starts out with Cassie being at I think it's an opera performance. And she sees Leo across the venue, and they make eye contact. And she immediately is like, who is this handsome stranger? And Cassie in and of herself is, you know, an affluent young woman. She is very protected. Her family, you know, is the upper crust, you know, in England. And she has a bodyguard. She has people that protect her. Something that was hard for me to wrap my head around, and I felt like I wanted from the story that I didn't get, but the more I thought about it, and after I talked to Alex about it a bit, I realized I didn't need that part. That the story is about Cassie and Leo and their families and their friends. Their family and their friends. There's this undercurrent of something going on behind the scenes in all of that, which is the drama part of all of it. And we don't really know exactly what it's all about. I mean, there's like murder, and there's, you know, really bad, dark, seedy elements. But that's not the focus of the book. And although I wanted to know about that, because I felt like I needed that, the more I thought about it and I read it, the more I understood I didn't really need it in the end, because it really isn't about that. It's about them. So in any case, so there's this, you know, that there's this drama surrounding her, and that she's protected, and that her father is, you know, really a high-ranking person in the English government. Her best friend, Fleur, the same thing. Her father works for the prime minister or something like that. Leo's family is in that, you know, area. You know what I mean? But we don't really know much about that. So that being said, Cassie sees Leo and she's like, who's this handsome stranger? Oh my gosh. And then she sees him again because he comes and talks to her brother. And she's like, oh, my brother knows him? Like, how do I not know who this guy is? And then we hear from Leo not too long, after this, and he says he knows everything about Cassie. He knows exactly who she is. He calls her his buttercup. I mean, because the dress that she's wearing has little yellow flowers on it and they're buttercups. And he talks to her with her brother standing there at the opera event, but she doesn't know who he is. And she's just like, oh my gosh, she's floored by him. She thinks he's totally hot. He is a very imposing personality. She's drawn to that with him. He's a lot. He's intense, and she notices that, and striking, and yet doesn't know him, but he knows all about her, and we hear that from him later. So that was very intriguing. It was a very interesting way to start the book. Like I said, I absolutely adore Alexandra's writing. I feel like her descriptions and the way she words things just suck me right in. And something that Cassie says, this is the first example that I got, that I highlighted as I was reading. Cassie is talking about Leo. They're at the event that I just talked about, at the opera event. She's describing the music that they're listening to. The falling notes, the way they trill like autumn leaves on a gust of wind, make it impossible for me to breathe. So she's getting so caught up in the music at an opera, and I've never been to an opera, but I've heard it. It's beautiful. And she's talking about that and talking about the climax of the music and how she can feel it. And wasn't that just so beautifully worded? Pretty quick after, like I said, when she meets Leo face to face, she is talking about, she's describing him. And oh my gosh, this is another one of those times where I just couldn't get over how Alexandra words things. So I want to read this one to you. Deep and broody, their green is golden in some parts and mossy in others. They're a handsome and hypnotic shade of muddy autumn grass that's still trying to regain some of its vibrancy after drying in the sun. I mean, this is how she's describing his eyes, Leo's eyes. So it sets you up for their love affair and how drawn to them they are. It's explosive, it's intense, and the whole book is kind of like that. And it starts with, as you're reading, the words that Alexandra chose. I love her characters, Alexandra's characters. So I love how she describes the characters and how the characters are. There's always, so now this is the fourth book, that quick-witted friend that's involved in the story. So Cassie's best friend is Fleur. She's hysterical. She reminds me of one of the previous characters, one of the characters from a previous book, who we are hopefully she's going to get her own book. So Fleur reminds me of Willow, and who is from the previous series. I love Willow. So meeting Fleur in this capacity as Cassie's best friend, I had high hopes for her, and I was not disappointed at all. She is amazing. She's so funny. In addition to, Cassie talks about them kind of being raised like sisters, because Cassie just has her one brother, Christopher, and they've known each other, their whole lives. And Fleur is fiercely protective of Cassie. Cassie, she's not a wallflower, but she is sweet and sensitive. I would not describe her as meek at all, but she's quiet. She's reserved. She's not kind of like out there. Whereas Fleur, on the opposite of that, is more speaks her mind, take no prisoners. So their friendship is kind of a good yin and yang. And I really like that in Alexandra's books. So there's a lot of angst between Leo and Cassie because there's a lot like I said, Cassie's been protected her whole life. She's from this affluent family, and they protect her. She doesn't know really what her father does. She doesn't know why Christopher, her brother, knows Leo. She doesn't know what Christopher is involved in with Leo, but she figures out that they're involved somehow together. You know, from Leo's perspective, and I want to mention that we get both of their perspectives in this book, you know, which is amazing. I love that. And so we know that Leo has known, like I said, Cassie for a long time, but just from afar. And honestly, he's been in love with her, but she's been untouchable, you know? And they have a lot of push and pull between them, because she meets him as a handsome stranger, and then she realizes there's more to the story, and she's like, what aren't you telling me? And she's very drawn to him, and he's trying to keep her at arm's distance, but yet he's attracted to her, and he wants to be with her, but he's trying to protect her, and he's always, she keeps running into him all these different places. So like, it's very very angsty and very, you know, I kind of got pissed at him after a while, because I was like, put the girl out of her misery, you know, like, stop coming around, stop trying to run into her, stop trying to entice her, because, you know, he, of course, you know, they run into each other places, and of course he comes up to her, and he's this broody, sexy man, and they're drawn to each other, and she's like, oh, okay, now he's gonna talk to me, and then he, you know, does like a 180, and he's like an ass to her. And so he did kind of frustrate me with me like that. He's very broody, he's very you know, holds things close to the vest, and, you know, she doesn't know where she stands with him, and yet, you know, we wouldn't have this amazing love story without some angst, right? So, but at one point, he does something that really, I was so mad about, and it involves another girl, and Fleur is there, and she sees it, and they know the other girl that's involved, and Cassie's heartbroken, and I was heartbroken too. Fleur comes right to Cassie's defense, and you know, Cassie's trying to walk away, and Fleur's trying to help her, and Fleur says to Leo, don't you dare look at her, you a-hole, I'll rip your effing eyes out. Like, she goes to bat for her, and she feels like she needs to protect Cassie in that moment. And, you know, that's amazing. That's your best friend, that's your sister, and she's standing up to the guy that just totally wronged you, you know? And the best part is that as they're walking away, and, you know, Fleur turns and she talks to the girl that's standing there too, and she's like, what are you still doing here? You know, scurry along, you know? And then Leo's kind of like, you know, he's pissed off, you know? And the best part was, as they're walking away, you know, Cassie's got her back to Leo. She raises her hand up and she gives him the finger, and she keeps walking. Like, you know, as she's walking away. It was classic. It was awesome. Something else that I thought was so funny that Fleur said, so they, you know, after that happens, Cassie decides, forget it. He doesn't want me. Forget it. You know, like, I'm better off without him. They decide they're going to go out. They're going to have girls' night. Fleur kind of takes it upon herself, as any good girlfriend would do, to kind of try to, you know, get her mind off of Leo, and which is amazing. And Fleur says, she's like, I want to read it because it's really funny. She says, we're winning at this shit today. Matching underwear, fingers, and toes, and managed to get ready while pre-drinking. Winning. She's so awesome, because, I mean, don't you feel good, like, when you're getting ready with your girlfriends for a night out, and everything matches, and you're, you know, it just, and you're all dolled up, and you're ready, and you're gonna forget that guy that's so mean to you. And it was very endearing part of the book for me with Fleur. I got that immediately. I was like, yep, I know exactly what you're saying. So poor Cassie, though, she keeps running into him. You know, was it by accident? I don't know. You know, and there's, like I said, there's this whole intensity, and there's this whole thing going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. And, you know, it frustrated me for Cassie, because she's like, I don't get it. Like, why, I know he likes me. Like, why won't he just be with me, you know? And she describes something as she really felt like he saw her and he felt her. And she's so confused as to, she's like, what's the problem? Because nobody will tell her what's going on. We know that there's an issue with Leo's father, and there's murder, and there's people in the hospital, like on life support. And all this is going on from Leo's perspective. We hear about it, but Cassie doesn't really know about it. I mean, even her brother and her father and her mother aren't talking about it, you know? They're trying to protect her. And Leo feels like, as we hear from his perspective, that if he's with her, it puts her in danger, even more danger than she's already in because of her brother and her father and the stuff that they're involved in. So he feels like if he's with her, then that just amps up the danger. But at some point he figures out, like, he can't stay away from her. They're meant to be together. He's, you know, wants her. She wants him. So eventually they get together, it was like, finally, you know, I was like, okay, here we go, you know. And the best part is, that's so not the end of the book. There's so much more that happens. Leo is not gentle with her in any capacity. And that goes with him as a character being this super broody, intense, alpha, all-encompassing just way that he is. And he doesn't treat her with kid gloves. And she doesn't want to be treated with kid gloves. And at some point, Cassie talks about them together, you know, when they're together. And I'm going to read it because it was awesome. Leo holds me like we have history between us and a world of experience and how to touch each other, but we don't. So there's an elemental level to their attraction and their need for each other that comes across perfectly with lines like this. And that's the beauty of Alexandra's writing, is that she literally makes you feel it like this. So remember, the name of the book is called Burn. Okay, their chemistry is off the charts. Alexandra Silva does not shy away from the physicalness of a romantic relationship, the intimacy of it. You get a lot of juicy, good scenes in her books. And Burn was very hot, very hot. It's not called Burn for nothing. Leo takes it upon himself after he decides he can't stay away from her. Because she knew from the get-go she didn't want to stay away from him. He was the one that kept pushing and pulling. It's all him. So once he decides that he's going to go for it, he says something to her because she sees this kind of darkness in him. She gets, there's some situations where she's involved and she sees things kind of happening and she's like, okay, whoa, you know? And she's not afraid of it because it's not in her nature to be afraid. Like I said, she's not meek. She's quiet and reserved. But she sees this intensity in him and he kind of feels like, you know, he has all this darkness and that he has killed people and he's not ashamed of that. And he kind of, you know, like I said, has this whole, whatever he does, you know, it's seedy and it's dark. I don't know how else to describe it, but he worries about that with her because he sees her as this light and this, you know, just this beautiful, his buttercup, his sweet buttercup, and he doesn't want to damage that. But he very fiercely wants to protect her, and he takes that upon himself. He kind of wants to take that away from her family and be like, okay, she's with me now. I mean, not like ownership, but you know what I mean? Like, he's like, okay, I got it now. Like, she's mine now. Like, she's mine now. And so he says this about her. He says this to her after a particularly intense situation. It's in my nature. I can love you, protect you, and kill for you in one single breath. And that's just Leo. I mean, he's like this super edgy, you know, like not mobster, but kind of, you know, like runs on this whole different wavelength in life that, like, you know, she doesn't at all. And he can do all of those things, and he does. On the flip side of that, he says something which I thought was very sweet. It's strange because I never thought I was tortured before, but she makes every second before her feel like I was lost in my own personal hell. So she really does bring out this part of him that he feels out of control, that she has all the control because he's totally in love with her and puts, you know, her on this pedestal and wants to protect her and wants, you know, she's his. And that makes him feel out of control. And I thought it was very interesting that he said he never considered himself tortured before until her. A very funny part of this book was Toby, Leo's dog. He takes to Cassie immediately. And he's this, I think, oh gosh, I can't remember what kind of dog. Was he a Mastiff? He's a big dog. I don't remember what kind of dog he is, but he takes to her immediately. And Leo's kind of jealous of him because he almost like growls at Leo then. He's like, don't come near her. She's mine now. And it's funny because Leo even says that to him. And he's like, get your own female. You know, she's mine. And it was really cute. And it's sweet how, you know, Toby kind of, you know, he wants to protect her as well. And he sees her light and her goodness and everything. And like the men in her life, he wants to protect her as well. And it was really cute. And Leo's reaction to that is really cute. So basically, you know, crap hits the fan and there's, you know, stuff, a big situation that happens and people die and there's, you know, it's violent and it's a lot. And I don't want to give too much away, but Cassie's in the hospital. And without sounding really morose, those were some of my favorite chapters from Leo because we learn so much about him and his vulnerability with her, you know, hurt and injured and out of it and laying in a hospital bed, and hearing him talk about her and talk about his life and his family and what's going on. And we learned so much about him. And I really felt like those were the chapters that I got to know him the most. And I liked him as a character. I mean, he frustrated me, but that's part of the story. But those were my favorite chapters of his. And it's such a sad part of the book, and he's sad and he's lost. But I liked that part because I felt like I knew her so well. And then I felt like I learned and I got to know him so well. You know, Fleur's the one that kind of, you know, solidifies to Leo, like, don't worry, she's gonna make it and she loves you. She's not leaving you yet, you know. And it was very sweet to watch them. So I would highly recommend that you read all of Alexandra Silva's books. I have a little piece of swag right here. I was so excited when I got that. That was, I think that's an old cover now of her first book. That's the one that I had all the highlights in. And I have a couple other little things that she sent me, which was really nice, and I cannot wait. Look at the cover of this book. I'm going to put it up on the screen so you can see it. I just love the process of, learning about where the title fits into the book, and then seeing how they design the cover, and every little piece that Alexandra thought about in putting this cover together. It fits perfectly, and the blurbs she's picked and everything. It's a work of art. It's so beautifully done. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know if you've read any of Alexandra Silva's books in the comments below. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you very soon.